to chime in on the video that I'll be able to post on a different stream. So welcome for our first night of Denise's Love Corner. Ask questions, post your comments, feedback. I love to hear from you guys, and I want to hear from you guys. So Limitless 101 is birthed to support female entrepreneurs that have been affected by trauma. And so the first place, if we're going to launch this, is to start with what are the effects of trauma and why does it matter to you? So last week I gave kind of an intro of who I am and a working definition of trauma, which I'll go back over that again. And we'll talk a little bit about how trauma affects us. So I'm Denise Williams. I am the founder of Limitless 101. I am a life coach for female entrepreneurs who have been affected by trauma. This has been birthed to support women who may want to start their business, who may want to go further in their business, to birth something amazing in them, to unlock the potential that they have in them, that might have gotten put off or doubted or maybe not move, maybe they've given up on the dream to go forward with what's really in their heart because of something they've experienced in their past. And maybe you haven't connected how the past really does affect the present. And so today, this is where Limitless 101 is gaining momentum and gaining speed, because I want to reach those women and just support them in going forward with whatever they have in their business or whatever they have to do, whatever they want to do with a lifestyle that's going to create for them freedom, healing, and confidence in the lifestyle that they desire. So let's start. Obviously, this is a movement to support women who have been affected by trauma. So what is trauma? Trauma, or maybe I should say a little bit more about me. Sorry, I'm a social worker, licensed, trained social worker. I've been in the field about 18 years. I've done lots of work with families. I've done most work with families, family work, outpatient mental health settings, residential, supportive housing, community settings, foster care settings. So I've worked with adults, I've worked with parents, I've worked with kids, and still the beat goes on. I'm still in social services today. So my heart is passionate with wherever I can support others and help them see through to their goals. And so here I am. So that's a little bit about me. If you have any questions or you want to message me, definitely feel free to reach out at denise.limitless101@gmail.com, or you can post a comment in the comment section below, or you can even private message me. I will use this video on Facebook. I will use it on YouTube and Instagram. So however you can connect, definitely connect and share your thoughts, share your input. Thanks, guys. So trauma, our working definition that we're going to use for now, is a type of damage to the mind that occurs as a result of a severely distressing event. Trauma is often the result of an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds one's ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved with that experience. That's from Wikipedia. Another definition: exposure to an extraordinary experience that presents a physical or psychological threat to oneself or others and generates a reaction of helplessness and fear. And that's from the American Psychological Association. And so between these two definitions, trauma affects different aspects of everything that we do. Childhood trauma, for one. Childhood trauma, if any, I'm going to post a question I have here. I don't know if you guys can see it. but I'm going to publish it now so you have a chance to look at it and you can answer. But trauma, childhood trauma, can happen in the form of child abuse, which could be physical, which could be emotional, which could be neglect of basic needs. It could be sexual abuse, molestation. So abuse can take place in those areas, but also too some of the areas that we don't really think about every day is, what if we have a parent who has a mental health illness, and they the children are exposed to that, the children absorb that, the children are affected by it, but sometimes parents don't understand how it affects a child. How does domestic violence affect a child? How does aggression in the home affect a child? How does physical abuse affect a child when they witness it or they overhear it? So all of these things have an effect. So if you grew up in a household where it was tumultuous, where there was substance abuse, that has an effect. If there was an adult with a mental health issue, that has an effect. That limitation does have an effect. If a child's basic needs weren't met as far as food, clothing, shelter, maybe there was an issue with homelessness and the family always had to move, or you were constantly shuffled from family member to family member to family member, and you didn't get to have that secure connection, that has an effect on us as adults as well. If you were severely physically abused, beaten, locked in closets, this happens, locked away, punished by being tied to a chair, or just insane ways of discipline where it really I don't want to say it damages, but it has a damaging effect. I'm a strong believer, broken crayons still color. So no matter what you've experienced, no matter how you've experienced it, you can still survive it. So all of these areas where we have abuse or neglect or a mental health limitation or substance abuse in childhood, these things carry over into adulthood. And some of those learned behaviors and how a child perceives it, whether they understand it or not, whether they misperceive it, that's going to be their understanding, and that's going to be how they're going to lock it into their brains, which we call a schema. A schema is something where you experience something and it becomes something that becomes bonded and gelled into your brain that way. And so you begin to see the world from that lens. So if you can imagine, if you grew up in a household as a child with any kind of domestic violence, abuse, substance abuse, mental health, all of these things, it forms the perception of that child as a child growing up into the world, and then in the world they continue with that same perception and lens. So if these glasses that I have here were not on my face, right, and I want to see something, I can only see through the lens that I can have access to. So if the lens that I am using is a lens that is it doesn't allow me to see clearly, I'm going to see the world from that lens. If I put these glasses on and they're dirty, if they're muddied up or they're smudgy, I can't see. I'm seeing the world from a skewed perspective. So if we go through these traumas in childhood and we grow up with this understanding that this is the way the world works, this is how we have to survive in the world. Remember, broken crayons still color. So even though the crayon broke, it's still going to do something, but it's going to do something from the vantage point that that person has. So if their view is limited, they're going to have a limited perception of how to deal with in the world, how to navigate in the world. So, I wish we had more people on here so they could ask some questions so I could get some feedback. But the perception of the perception that we have as children, well, that start from childhood on through adulthood, it follows us. So now in the midst of our adulthood, now this is where Limitless 101 comes in, because as adults you want to do things, and maybe we're all taught, go to school, get a job, get an education, do well, get a good career, start a family. We're taught these things as children, and as adults we continue this way. But if you've experienced the trauma, that will have an effect on how you perceive the world and how you go after what it is that you believe in your heart. So, Limitless 101 is formulated to support women who have been affected by trauma. Women who have been affected by trauma. Well, let's talk about the effects of trauma before we get into why this is pertinent for women entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. So, childhood traumas give you a skewed perspective of the world, yes. But also, too, trauma also has an effect on your health as an adult. It has effect on how you perceive fear. Trauma has an effect on how you tolerate fear. Trauma has an effect on how you put yourself in social settings. Maybe you have a phobia of being in crowds now because you've experienced this thing that has been so traumatic. You don't want to go back to something that reminds you of it because it's going to bring you back to that time when something bad happened. Maybe the effect of trauma for you is repeating what you've always come to know, repeating what seems normal, repeating patterns that were maladaptive. Domestic violence, for instance. If you grew up in a home where your parents were always fighting, or you witnessed your mother always getting beat up by your father or your stepdad. Your father might be an alcoholic. He might have mental health issues. We don't know. As a child, sometimes you don't know these things, but sometimes you do notice it and you pick up on it, but you feel helpless, or you may try to protect your mom, or you may try to do something. Well, and also too, within that type of family, you might have a lot of secrets, and everybody's keeping each other's secrets. So there's just layers upon layers and layers and layers of secrets. So in a dynamic like that, in a type of family like that, the children grow up, and either they can follow a pathway of continuing the same type of behaviors. They can continue on in the same type of interactions with others with regard to keeping secrets, lying, not living in a realistic way, to allow the dysfunction to continue, because the dysfunction becomes normal. And we say, oh, well, that person's not normal. Well, what is normal? Everyone's normal is a different normal. So now when you come to look at an adult and you're looking at patterns, you may see some of the patterns that this person has, but not understand where they come from. So in this situation, that child that witnessed and experienced that domestic violence with their parent, they can either grow up to become abusers, they can become victims, or they can perpetuate, or actually they can perpetuate the cycle of what they've been taught, what they've observed, what they have perceived in their schema of things, how to live in the world and how to survive. And so in the midst of just using that as an example, Limitless 101 is really targeting women who have experienced some kind of trauma, whether in their childhood, whether as an adult, whether they're still in that toxic relationship and really just want more out of life. So this movement is really to support women who may not believe that they can do what's in their heart and what's in their mind and what they are truly, truly good at, but just don't have that support. I want to create here in our Denise's Love Corner an empowerment circle where we can all come, and it's open to men as well to join in on the conversation, because maybe you guys get something that you can share at home with the women that are important in your lives. So this is definitely going to be a circle of empowerment. It's going to be a place where we can commune together and we can have these conversations, and it can be a safe space to just bring awareness to how are we affected by our environment? How are we affected by the things that have happened to us as children? How are we affected by what we want to do in life, but we're just stuck? How do we get to a place where we are just stuck? How do we get unstuck? So, today is just starting off on the topic of trauma. There's a lot of research out there that talks about the effects, the medical effects. Guys, the research is real. There are really severe consequences to experiencing trauma, especially in childhood. It doesn't just keep you from not going to class and not being able to concentrate or having a hard time getting forward with graduation. Trauma in childhood can affect you through the continuum of your life. Psychologically, it can create higher propensity for depression, for anxiety, medical issues, heart risk. Guys, this is real. And as an adult, if you have kids and you are in this type of situation and your kids are involved, or they can overhear, or they can experience it, be mindful that the seeds that you're planting with your children, it can have lasting effects on your pregnancy and on your fetus, on your children for the rest of their lives. And maybe you think you're just enduring it, or you're getting through, or you're getting by. But if getting by means that your child is subjected to less than better head start, think about it. What's more important? So I'm here because I want to support you, and I want to encourage you, and really just create a community where you have a place to verbalize your concerns. And if you don't feel comfortable in the community setting to do it, you can definitely message me and we can do something one-on-one. So I can make myself available for that. But this is really just to make sure that, we're supporting one another, and we're creating outlets so that people can really understand trauma is very real. And trauma comes in very different forms. My organization, Limitless 101, is targeting female entrepreneurs that have been affected by trauma, but that does not mean that men have not been affected by trauma. And I have friends that are doing wonderful things with men who have been affected by trauma. So again, if you have a need, a concern, I am me, and I can definitely, connect you with my trusted circle. So again, I don't know if we have questions, and I'm not sure. I don't want to ramble, but I definitely want you guys to message me and leave comments on this video. Let me know what else you would like to touch on. I'm gonna keep moving with the topics, and we can come back to trauma next week again. And maybe just go more in depth based upon the feedback that I get. But then, definitely we can definitely look at some of the other areas that and how trauma affects a female entrepreneur in going forward with her goals, her dreams, her desires, even in, things that are maybe going on with her family. Maybe that's not the lifestyle that she desires, but maybe there's something that we can unlock here to have a breakthrough for her. And men, if you have questions with regard to something that is going on with your mate, something going on with a female that you care a lot about, and you really just want some support and feedback, you are definitely welcome to post questions and comments in the group. or on this post, or wherever I post this, because I am doing a separate video so that I can post it. But you're definitely welcome to ask questions, and if it will support that special person in your life, I'm all for it. So together we rise. And so let's bring awareness to this. Let's bring awareness to what's going on in the media. A lot of women are going back and being triggered by what's in the news. And so let's support one another with what's going on, and let's try to validate, meaning let's acknowledge where people are. And everyone's experience is everyone's experience, so you can't really take that away from a person. And it's best to just treat one another how you want to be treated. Hopefully you want to be treated with respect and dignity. There's some that don't, but still it's best to put your best foot forward all the time, because you never know how you may change a life and how you may affect a life. So this is Denise Williams, Limitless 101. I'm looking forward to your questions, your comments, and we will continue on trauma next Wednesday at 7. Thanks, guys. I hope you take the poll. The question is, what, if any, trauma is most familiar to you? And there are certain areas where you can take the poll. Sorry for those of you on this video, you will not be able to take the poll. But I'm interested in hearing your feedback. All right, take care. God bless. Be well. Limitless 101.